history, which is not unrelated to what we're discussing here today. In the 17th century, in this country, in the period leading up to the great upheaval, which was known as the English Revolution, when England became the first country to lop off the head of the ruling monarchs. A tradition that is often forgotten, but what is also forgotten is that long before that upheaval occurred, there was a huge struggle in this country for the right to write, print, and distribute a pamphlet. And in 3 years, I think my memory is failing me a bit, but in the crucial years from 1637 or 1636 to 1640, a bookseller not far from this area where we're meeting today recorded that his personal collection alone contained 232,000 pamphlets against the Antichrist, which was the common way of describing the enemy at that time. And these pamphlets, for writing which, many of the pamphleteers, John Bastwick for one, but others, were taken to prison, locked up, chained, beaten, in some cases hung, drawn, and quartered. And that was the price those pioneers paid for liberty, for freedom of expression. And today in the 21st century, 4 centuries later, we are still discussing this issue of the right to have access to free information so we can make up our minds as citizens as who to vote for, as who to march against, and as what to do in our daily lives, politically and in other capacities. We're still fighting for that right. So let's ask ourselves, what is it that causes people to take huge personal risks and betray secrets? When Daniel Ellsberg betrayed, as he was accused of doing, secrets which later were published as the Pentagon Papers, why did he do it? He did it because the entire decision by the United States to attack and bomb North Vietnam in 1964 was based on a lie. And that lie was that their warships in the Gulf of Tonkin had been attacked and torpedoed by North Vietnamese torpedo boats. The North Vietnamese denied this. They said, we didn't do it. The entire Western media said that they had done it, and the very next day, the bombing began. And 2 brave senators in the American Senate, Fulbright and Wayne Morse, stood up and said, we don't believe it. The evidence isn't there. And that encouraged Ellsberg to look at the exchange of telegrams, and he found out it was a lie. The whole thing was rigged. And that's what caused him to come out, take a huge risk, sacrifice his job, his career, get locked up, be slandered. Lots of stuff was put about in the American media about his adulterous affairs, etc., etc. But he always felt proud of what he had done, and that too was done at a time when a hugely unpopular war and occupation was taking place. And the point I'm trying to make is that these things usually happen in times of crisis and in times of war. Ellsberg did it during the Vietnam War. The Wikileaks people and Assange have done it at a time when Iraq has been devastated its social infrastructure destroyed, its people killed. 5 million Iraqis are refugees in neighboring countries. Afghanistan is being destroyed. Pakistan is being attacked by drones. Under Obama, there have been more drone attacks on Pakistan than in the entire 8 years of the Bush administration. So here it's not just continuity with Bush, it is worse as far as the people of that region are concerned. And when these things are going on, and nobody is digging out the dirt and publishing it, then individuals or groups of people decide that this is the way to go forward. Because what has deteriorated even more since Ellsberg's revelations in the Pentagon Papers, those revelations triggered off a huge wave of investigative journalism. And they got so scared of it that they decided that the next time we went in for big wars, we had to make sure that the media was totally tame and under control. So when they fought the first war in the Gulf and then the Iraq war, we had a new development which was talked about quite neutrally. That we now have journalists who, in order to function and do their work, have to be embedded. Embedded with the military. So that they can be controlled. A few brave souls said we won't be embedded. Fisk for one, Patrick Coburn for another, John Pilger, who went to the interior. And said we're not going to be embedded, because being embedded means to be controlled. We see what you want us to see. And if that has been bad in the print media, it has been horrific on television. Horrific. Which television channel has shown a documentary soon after these events happened of the massacres in Fallujah? The New York Times actually published an article of interviews with American soldiers in Fallujah in Iraq, who, when asked, why are you shooting wounded people, said, it's better to put animals out of their misery. This was not reported on television. So, side by side with the wars, we have had a process where the main media networks have been sealed. If you look, for instance, one evening at high points of the main stories on BBC World, or 24 Hours, CNN, the two principal Western channels watched of the worst, they are virtually the same. They start with the same shots, they have the same images, etc. Which is why so many people in Europe and in North America, whenever there's a war or a crisis, switch to Al Jazeera. And even before there was English Al Jazeera, I know lots of people in Europe who would switch to the Arabic Al Jazeera, that saying, even though we don't understand Arabic, we can see the images. These are different images that we are getting. And so, for me, the entire Wikileaks episode is part of the struggle to create an alternative network of information that includes Wikileaks, that includes Amy Goodman's wonderful show in the United States called Democracy Now! That includes Al Jazeera, that includes alternative networks that you have to struggle to find, but you find them for alternative news. Precisely because of the death of investigative journalism in the mainstream media, print and television and radio, precisely because of that, Wikileaks acquires a huge importance. It's doing the job which mainstream journalists refuse to do. And for that alone, we should be grateful to Wikileaks and Julian Assange. It's an extremely important business, and I don't think it's going to end. One has to say this. I support what everyone else has said about opposing and fighting for Julian and Bradley Manning. All this, we have to carry on doing it. The reason they are doing it and victimizing these guys is as a deterrent. Punish them hard enough, destroy their characters, make life really difficult for them so that it will discourage other people from doing it. That is the reason they're doing it, and it's going to fail.